Is now in the studio with head teacher Anthony Pontifex, and in our London newsroom Belinda Parmar from the campaign group The Truth About Tech. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us this morning. Anthony, from your point of view as a head teacher in a secondary school, how much of an issue is this whole addiction to gaming?
Yeah, I think it is, and this week I've actually been meeting with our Year 11 pupils following their mock exam results, and when I'm having conversations with them and they're telling me that they are spending hours upon hours on the Xbox playing certain games, and I think the large game companies actually have a role to play in this, because some of the games are set up, in my opinion, in a certain way that they encourage them to continue playing it so they achieve further experience points or further credit, so that they can then go on and buy characters and that they can go and buy themes and attachments for weapons and so on. And I think it's a real problem, because then they come into school having potentially been playing on these games till the early hours, and then obviously has a negative impact on their progress and on their achievement within the classroom. So I think it is certainly a problem that needs looking at.
One of the stats around this says that extreme internet use, defined by the OECD, is a student who uses the internet for more than 6 hours, not on a school day, so a typical weekend day. And over a third of 15-year-olds have admitted to that, which is astonishing.
Yeah, and we certainly see that in school. And I think, to be fair, the school that I'm in, St James, we're actually ahead of the curve. So this week we've had assemblies where we've looked at e-safety, and we've particularly focused on the addiction to gaming, and we've run workshops for parents to make sure that they're doing as much as they can to be monitoring the students and how much that they're on their consoles.
It's a difficult one, because a lot of your students must be doing this in their own time at home. So as a school, how involved do you get? And do you, when you spot the warning signs, do you intervene? Do you speak to parents about it?
Yeah, and I think that's it. And running these workshops has been really, really useful. And I think it's a school-parent partnership, and making sure that parents are monitoring it and potentially having that difficult conversation with their children and limiting the amount of time that they're on their consoles, so that there isn't a negative impact on their progress and achievement within school.
Belinda, let's bring you in our London newsroom. You campaign about this. It's something you feel very strongly about, and you've just been in Davos, haven't you, at the World Economic Forum talking about it. How did your message go down?
Well, it's interesting, because this is a heartbreaking story where you've got children going into care. I mean, it's that extreme. And it's really personal to me. My nephew was the first boy to be diagnosed in the UK with games addiction, and I've seen it in my own family. And what's happened is the impact on a family is enormous. You know, my relationship with my son has become about the removal of the device, or the games console, or the phone, than actually the joy of us being together. So it has a really big impact on families. In terms of last week, it was fantastic to actually see this be on a world stage and people start to take it seriously. I mean, I had mums and dads come up to me and say, you know what, when I take my phone away from my daughter, it's literally like removing one of her lungs. Another dad was saying, you know, he feels like he's socially castrating his child by not allowing them to play games like Fortnite. So this is a huge issue in developed worlds. I think we are just starting to see the impact, and I don't want our children to be experiments. I don't want them to be guinea pigs, because there isn't enough research out there. You know, the research is causal, but you just need to be a head teacher and actually, or a GP, or actually spend some time with some teenagers to know that this is such a big issue and no one knows how to navigate it.
Anthony made the really good point about gaming companies and their responsibility. What can they be doing?
Well, I think it's a brilliant point. I mean, if you look at Fortnite, the player spending, so that's our children, they spend $1 million a day on Fortnite, as an example. And you think, you know, do the CEOs of these games companies, do they let their children spend 6 hours a day on these games? I mean, Steve Jobs famously said he didn't let his children use iPads. You know, so these games companies, they're very happy to let our children get addicted, but when it comes to their own families, they don't let that happen. So I think we need an addictiveness rating. One of the things I want is an addictive rating on every every single game that comes out. Because I think, you know, if we'd all known how addictive Fortnite was or certain other games, and I don't want to just focus on Fortnite, would we have let our children play them? Because, you know, it's a bit like food. Now we know what we're buying. We know the salt content, we know the sugar content, we know the number of calories. When we're giving our children a PlayStation or an Xbox and we're giving them content, we don't actually know how addictive that is.
You've mentioned the F word 3 times during the course of that interview.
Sorry.
I'm afraid there has to be, I suppose, a nuanced way of dealing with it, but I must admit the Xbox controller is locked in the glove box of my car at the moment, and if my children are watching, I've got the car keys at work. Bad luck.
Good.
Thank you both very much indeed.